cultivate sources. That's how you get stories.
Yeah.
It's journalism 101. So, it is what it is. And I've always felt that sources respond to a person in a particular way. So I've got people that responded to me in a very positive way, and they'll open up and tell me things well in advance and call me up for no reason, just to check how you're doing. That relationship develops. Here's my observation about your relationship with the late former deputy president. I felt that at first he found you were pestering him. You were shoving a mic all the time, and I remember he's done a lot of growing up, by the way. He used to be very in your face, right? Let's call it that. But I think over time he was fascinated by you, that who's this young man who asks awkward questions when you least expect, and has a way of just popping up. So there'll be a media scrum, and then a Samgale will be there and saying, just tell me about that, how that became an important, not personal relationship in a way that compromises you, but a relationship where you knew that if I want to have an off-the-record, on-the-background conversation, it can happen.
Our relationship started off I was with you, in fact, when it got off, when Pushpak reached.
Yeah.
And I asked him a question about his friendship with Robert Gumede, the bankrolling of the ANC within the province at the time, and how that was not clouding his political judgments and the decisions he was taking. He was taken aback.
Yes.
But after
that's the in-your-face part.
That was the in-your-face part. But after that discussion, he called me aside and said, young man, come here. I went to him. He said, it's brave of you to ask me such a question up front like that. Very few people would be brave enough to raise the issue of Robert Gumede to me. What prompted you? I said, why should I be scared of you? You are an elected public official. It is your duty to respond to society when they raise concerns about the relationship of a businessman and an incumbent premier and provincial chair of the ANC.
And that was on theme at the time, right?
That was on theme at the time. And he said, I must take you back to the history of the ANC and the Gumedes and myself and Robert Gumede. That is when he confided on a lot of things Robert Gumede was speaking about, on his health issues, and how many people perceived that he was benefiting financially from that particular relationship and not the African National Congress. And he then said, many of the things Robert Gumede gave back to were for the African National Congress, such as the vehicles. He then took me into confidence on the work he was doing through his foundation in uplifting people's lives. Just recently, last week, I went and researched how many houses has he actually built from his pocket and from the foundation to the people. It is over 350 houses that he's built across the country for destitute families. And that intrigued me to get to know this particular person. Who is David Mabuza? What is he all about? And it was also around that controversy around the late Jimmy Mushala, the political killings that were taking place in the province, the allegations of people disappearing and being beaten at night by this paramilitary that he allegedly had in the province, in the words of the late Matthew Sposa, the former premier of the province. And that for me was to get an understanding of who this particular individual was, and I was then able to gain his confidence and trust, and he was able to confide on a certain number of things politically that were ongoing with him in the organization, the African National Congress. Just 2 or 3 weeks ago, when he came back from Russia, we were planning on a documentary on his life, his political life, the work he's done in the province, particularly on infrastructure development, because in many instances, as South Africans, we tend to focus on the political imaginations of political leaders and not actually delve in to the work they've done in government. You've heard the work about the fresh produce market, Mandla Ndlovu delivering a mini sopa, about the work of David Mabuza in government, the farm schools that he's built and turned into boarding schools, but also the road infrastructure that is there in Mpumalanga. Remember, there was a time when people spoke about roads in Mpumalanga infested with potholes. But you look at the roads infrastructure in Mpumalanga today, the Department of Public Works and Roads and Transport within this particular province, when it comes to governance and clean audits, beats all other provinces, led by Charles Murulo, who's currently the HOD. So it just tells you that David Mabuza was well immersed in the knowledge of governance within the province. Sazekane spoke about how MECs could not just use capital funds for any use, but it had to be for the greater good of the people when it comes to infrastructure development. So those are some of the issues that brought me closer to him, and also his relationship with former President Zuma.